Corporation to the mic on. I'd like to say hello to everybody before we get formally into the agenda. I'll certainly start off by saying it's the council meeting of January the 11th at 7 p.m. on here in the council chambers, and remind everybody that the meeting is being held in person in the council chambers, and due to COVID restrictions, we are unable to safely accommodate the public at the meeting. And in order to ensure transparency, an audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the website immediately following adjournment. And just to assure everyone that staff and council members are well separated by minimum of 2 meters looking around, and we follow the protocol. Entering the building, you are wearing a mask and sanitizing your hands, and only remove your mask if comfortable, and with being more than 2 meters apart, you can remove your mask. Just to identify who's here this evening, we have our CIO and our deputy clerk, who is the clerk of record for the meeting, and all council members and staff with us are our Kristen, our treasurer, and our fire chief. And on the line for item number 4 on the agenda under planning, we do have Forbes Simon from JP2G joining us. So having said that, wish everyone a very happy new year. Trust everybody had the best efforts possible, a pleasant Christmas time, safe with family if you were able to accommodate that, and wish everybody the best in 2021. What's the expression, is there light at the end of the tunnel? We know there will be, but gosh, it's going to be a very long tunnel, and everybody should continue doing, following guidelines, etc. And maybe on a bit of a happier note, and we need them all. We had some challenges getting our ice rink open, but boy, we know the history of our municipality with volunteers, and whether we look to the Lions Club, Friends of the Library, Mad Gardeners, the list goes on, Agricultural Society. We have a group of very dedicated and positive volunteers that over the last 2 or 3 days have been able to get our ice rink up and running, so that's really positive news, and let's hope that kind of positive enthusiasm continues for everybody in the municipality throughout the course of the year. On that note, I'll call the meeting to order officially and ask any members if they have just any pecuniary interest, and if so, would they please disclose. And looking around the table, there's a nodding of no from all members. Thank you very much for that. And next, we do have a motion to approve the agenda. If I have a mover and a seconder, thank you, Mr. Foster, and seconded by Mr. Malloy. And I'm going to indicate that it will be as amended because there is a change on one of the some of the wording under item number number 9, and it's the interim, the interim tax levy, and our treasurer will speak to that. It's just changing on the couple of the dates. So
number 9? Number 8.
Number 8. Number 8. Okay. So there'll be a change to that, and Kristen will speak to it specifically when we get to that item. But it is a change in terms of what has been posted and your agenda items. So that's why the agenda will be amended. So you've heard the mover and a seconder. The Council of the Corporation of the Village of Maryville Wolford does hereby approve the agenda of the regular council meeting of January the 11th, 2021 as amended. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to, pardon me, number 4, planning. And I remind members that we do have our consultant planner from JP2G with us, Forbes Simon. And before I read the motion, I'll just double check to ensure that Mr. Simon is still with us. Good evening, Forbes, if I might. Are you there, sir?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor, and Happy New Year's to you and your council and your staff.
Well, thank you very much.
Same to you.
And to you and your family and colleagues as well, sir. So I'll read the motion. I'll move and a seconder for the motion, please. Thank you, Mr. Malloy, and a seconder. Thank you, Mr. Helpney. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Maryville Wolford does hereby receive planning report from Forbes Simon of JP2G Consultants Inc., with respect to consent applications B-128-20 and B-129-20 for information purposes, and the council does hereby recommend deferral of consent applications B-128-20 and B-129-20 to the consent granting authority until a satisfactory archaeological assessment and a noise impact study are submitted and reviewed. Having read the motion, members, you do have a planning report in your package, and I think it would be appropriate if we ask Mr. Simon just to briefly go over the report for us, ensure that everybody is understanding the content of your report. Good evening, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I was asked to look at the two consent applications. In general, I think that they're good applications, and there's potential for the lot creation. It's just that your official plan is very clear that a noise study needs to be done because it's within close proximity to the rail line, and an archaeological study needs to be done because it's within 300 meters of the Rideau River. Both of these studies have potential to create conditions, and that's why I'm recommending deferral of the applications until the studies are done. The other option would be to make the studies conditions of the consent, and my concern with that, Mayor and Council, is that there would be no mechanism then to be able to implement any recommendations that would come out of those studies. And so my recommendation to you tonight is to continue to defer, as the motion says, and then have the applicant prepare the studies, bring them back in, and if there are conditions, then they can be incorporated into the Land Division Committee's decision. That's my report, Mr. Mayor, unless there's any questions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, very well explained. So, members, any questions for our consultant planner, Mr. Foster?
Yeah, as much for my own education as anything else, Forbes. How involved is an archaeological assessment?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I could not hear that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that particular mic seems to be very, very echoey. Perhaps not using the mic, and speaking very loud. We'll try that.
Okay, we'll try and find the sweet spot for the mic. There's usually a sweet spot on. So if you can hear me, Forbes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, for our own education as much as anything else, what is involved in an archaeological assessment, and how much of a job is that, just out of curiosity?
Archaeological assessments have become quite common in the last decade, particularly near significant water bodies. For a severance application, it's usually they would usually have to do a phase 1 and potentially a phase 2. A phase 1 is a tabletop exercise. A phase 2 is a site visit. I'd recommend a site visit for this one. If there are known artifacts within sort of a half kilometer of this area, it may cause further investigation and actual field work. But I would suggest for a severance application like this, it's a 3-month exercise and $3,000 to $5,000.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Mr. Cameron.
Yeah, Forbes, is that under our new Planning Act, or is that under the old Planning Act that this requirement is?
That's a very good question. It's under the old. I only review the old policies until the new one's in force in effect, but it's under the old one. They're both under the new as well, and these are provincial policy requirements for noise and archaeological. The province expects these policies in your official plan.
So you don't foresee any complications arising out of these two studies, or just more a formality moving forward?
It's hard to prejudge the studies, but I can tell you, particularly with respect to the noise impact, it doesn't generally stop development. It just says how development should proceed, that they have to have a certain thickness of walls, maybe limit the window openings directed towards the railway, or require central air to be in place in a house. So the noise study usually sets out sort of ways that you can mitigate the noise impact. The archaeological can be a little more tricky if they find that the site has significance. And there's a whole range of options that would be involved with that, and it would likely result in engaging the Algonquins of Ontario into how to deal with a significant find.
Thank
If
you.
there is no significant find, it's a checkbox and you move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, members, and you're amenable to moving forward with the motion, you've got a mover and a seconder, you heard the motion. If there aren't any other questions or comments, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you, Mr. Forbes. Thank you very much for your expertise and guidance through dealing with this, these consent applications, and we look forward to their outcome throughout the course of the year. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's always my pleasure, sir. Have a good evening.
And
Goodbye.
you as well. Bye now. And just so everybody knows, Mr. Simons has signed off on the phone call. And next, members, we have two sets of minutes from last December, and if I can have a mover and a seconder for the first set of minutes, please. Thank you, Mr. Foster, and a seconder would be, thank you, Mr. Cameron. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Marrickville-Wolford does hereby approve the minutes of the special council meeting of December the 9th, 2020 as circulated. Are there any errors and omissions? None noted, all in favor? And that's carried as circulated. Thank you. And the second set of minutes is reference to our December the 14th meeting, and mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, Mr. Helpney, and a seconder would be, thank you, Mr. Malloy. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Marrickville-Wolford does hereby approve the minutes of the regular council meeting of December the 14th, 2020. Are there any errors and or omissions? None noted. And we'll approve the minutes as circulated. All in favor? And that as well is carried. Thank you. And next, members, we do have correspondence from, make sure I've got the right motion in front of me, from the Lions Club regarding signage. And we'll have a mover and a seconder. Please put the motion on the table. And it is moved by Mr. Foster and a seconded by Mr. Malloy. Thank you, sir. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Marrickville-Wolford does hereby receive correspondence from Kelvin McGreevy, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, correctly, President of the Lions Club of Marrickville, received November the 23rd, 2020, for information purposes, and we have options here, gentlemen. The council does hereby approve the installation of Lions Club signage as described in the aforementioned correspondence to the village entrance signs at the discretion of the manager, operations, in consultation with the CAO clerk to ensure safety and sufficient space. Or the council does hereby not approve the installation of the Lions Club signage as described in the aforementioned correspondence with the village entrance signs. So I will ask either our CAO or our manager of operations if they have any comments on the not just the request, but in terms of the approach. for installing signs. So, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Cole, good evening, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So my only concern would be, are they just asking for the outer entrance signs? As the inner signs showing the hamlets and stuff like that are a little tight for room. But the outer signs, I think, would be sufficient to hold them.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when you say the outer sign, those are the municipal boundary signs as
Correct,
opposed to the
sorry,
smaller
correct.
signs at the entranceway.
I believe that's
So,
what
yeah, we do have, actually happen to have a member of the Lions Club with us this evening, and also Councillor Mr. Malloy. And, sir, your response to that is?
My understanding is that's exactly what they're asking for. Mainly the 4 main entrances coming into the village. You know, they're not looking for it way out, you know.
Sorry, not the municipal boundary signs, but the
I
signage
do
on
not
the
believe so. I
hamlet?
believe they're asking for the, how should I say, the village proper signs.
Yep.
Where they were before. I mean, we had them there before. They just disappeared somehow.
Yeah, oh, and probably when to the, we'll say the new signs that, you know, have the municipal logo on them, et cetera, as opposed to just many years back.
Exactly. That's my understanding anyway.
So that would be a response to your query, Mr. Cole.
Is that okay, Jim? It's just the 4 signs coming into the village, is what I understand.
The only thing we would have to be careful with is sight lines, due to the placement of those signs coming into the municipality. They're close to laneways. That would be the only thing we would really have to watch is sight lines for traffic entering onto the roadway.
I think what I would suggest to council members that if we went ahead with the motion, that the council does hereby approve the installation of the Lions Club signage as described in the aforementioned correspondence to the village entrance signs at the discretion of the manager of operations in consultation with the CEO to ensure safety and sufficient space. So if we pass that motion tonight, our manager working with the Lions Club, receiving the signs if the size becomes an issue, you know, working with the Lions Club and perhaps coming back with either saying they've changed the size of their logo or some other alteration, but we give the green light to move ahead with the concept. If members are comfortable with that, and I'm seeing nodding in the head of our manager, then I'll call the vote that it would be that we're going with the positive part of the motion. Do you want me to read it again, or we're comfortable that I will check off the council does hereby approve, etc.? And last comment, Mr. Robertson.
Your Worship, just prior to you taking the vote, I just wanted to make sure there's one item that's clear. Just having a closer look at the wording of the letter. Staff's intent tonight with the resolution that you are approving solely the Lions Club signs. As I
Yeah.
noted in the letter, it refers to other organizations.
Yeah.
So staff's intention would be any other requests from other organizations would be brought to council on a one-off basis.
Oh, point well made.
Yep, absolutely, yes. Well, so thank you for ensuring we are clear on that.
Thank you.
So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Cole. So, gentlemen, you've heard the motion, and we are all in favor, and we are. Thank you very much. And gentlemen, next we have, for information purposes, a motion regarding, I'll make sure it gets right, I have dealing with, OPP dealing with speeding, so I'll move her in a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Mr. Malloy, and a seconder, thank you, Mr. Cameron. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Marrickville Wolford does hereby receive correspondence from Del Bauer, Chair of the Marrickville Wolford Police Service Board, dated December the 28th, 2020, for information purposes. I'll speak to it very briefly, and I thought I had some other notes handy, and I may not find them, but it was a question from Council, I can't remember if Mr. Foster or Mr. Cameron, but in terms of the quote-unquote dealing with speeding, and I think it outlines quite well some of the tools that in recent years the OPP have available to them in terminating, not just in terms of dealing with speeders, but in terms of being able to assess where there are issues throughout the municipality, and more specifically that should folks have a concern about speeding in their on their street in their neighborhood, to contact the OPP. Certainly you can go through the chair of our board, but it would be directly to the OPP and their traffic folks, and they have a really good tools in their basket, if you will, to deal with those circumstances. So that's for council's information, and I'll call the vote to receive for the motion. All in favor? Thank you very much. And next is the temporary borrowing bylaw, and so it's a motion for that. Gentlemen, a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Mr. Malloy. And a seconder would be, thank you, Mr. Helpley. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Mayor for Wolford does hereby receive Report Finance-01-2021 regarding the interim borrowing bylaw for 2021, and the Council does hereby give favorable consideration to bylaw 01-2021, being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of money to meet the 2021 expenditures of the Corporation of the Village of Mayor for Wolford. And we do have our treasurer with us this evening. If anyone has any questions, just confirmation from our treasurer. My question would be, and this is an annual bylaw that virtually every municipality in the province passes,
Yeah,
ourselves included.
Yes, Your Worship, that's correct. It's just precautionary, and I don't anticipate having to use it.
Thank you. Any questions? No. Oh, sorry, Mr. Cameron.
One important question everybody's waiting to hear: when is the budget going to be coming out? When discussions for the budget?
I'm sorry. When is the?
When are we going to start having discussions for the budget?
Staff will be probably in the next week or so be sending out some proposed dates where we have our budget deliberations.
Thank you.
Yep. If there aren't any questions on the motion, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And the next item is the interim tax levy, and this is where we have the amendment to the agenda, because there's a part of the original distribution that is changing. And I have before I go any further, our clerk of record has a question, comment, or some guidance for us.
My apologies, Your Worship. That's the bylaw that corresponds with the report. So we're just still on the interim borrowing bylaw.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so this is the bylaw that goes with the interim borrowing. Thank you, not the interim tax levy where there was an adjustment in the amendment. Thank you very much. So if I could move for a seconder for the bylaw, please. Thank you, Mr. Cameron. And a seconder would be, thank you, Mr. Malloy. Be it hereby resolved that bylaw 01-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the municipality to borrow up to $2 million during the January 1st, 2021 to September 30th, 2021 period, and up to $1 million during the October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021 period, in order to finance the village's current operating expenditures on an interim basis, be read a first and second time, and that bylaw 01-2020 be read a third and final time and passed. If there aren't any questions, gentlemen, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Now, this is, gentlemen, I'm getting thumbs up from our clerk of record for this evening, that this is the amendment item on our agendas, and it's the interim tax levy. So a mover and a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Mr. Foster. And a seconder would be Mr. Cameron. Thank you, sir. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Mayor for Wolford does hereby receive Report Finance-01-2021 regarding the interim tax levy for 2021, and that the council does hereby give favorable consideration to bylaw 02-2021, being a bylaw to authorize the 2021 interim tax levy. And at this point, I would ask our treasurer to outline the change in the text from what was circulated to council and to the public on our website, what the change is this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. The only change is for item number 5. Instead of saying interim levy amounts that are in default on the 27th day of February 2021, it should instead read on the first day of March 2021. So that is being corrected.
Thank you very much. If there aren't any, are there any questions? I'm not seeing any. I will call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And this would be a motion for the bylaw. So a mover and a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Mr. Foster. And a seconder would be, thank you, Mr. Helpme. Be it hereby resolved that bylaw 02-2021, being a bylaw to impose an interim tax levy for the year 2021 on properties within all tax classes in the Village of Marrickville Wolford, be read a first and second time, and that bylaw 02-2021 be read a third and final time and passed. If there aren't any questions on the bylaw, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And next we do have the year-end report from our fire department. And so I'm going to move in a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Mr. Foster, and seconded by Mr. Malloy. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Marrickville Wolford does hereby receive report FD-01-2021, being the 2020 year-end report of the Marrickville Fire Department for information purposes. And we do have our fire chief with us this evening, Chief Cole. I'm not sure if there's anything specific you wanted to bring to council's attention. But if there is, you have the floor, sir.
Your Worship, I would just like to congratulate our 5 recruits that have passed their Firefighter 1 certification. And also just would like to say a thank you to all the firefighters who showed great dedication throughout this pandemic and didn't waver at all in assisting their community anytime.
Thank you very much, sir. If there aren't any question, Mr. Malloy?
What's their number?
Use your mic, please, Mr. Malloy.
Sorry?
Mic.
Oh,
Thank you.
what number are we at in the fire department? Like how many firefighters do we have?
We currently have 26 active right now.
And how's that compared to what we should have or need or?
We usually stay around 29 to 30, but
So,
we are recruiting right now as well.
so we're pretty close though.
Correct.
Okay, good, thank you.
If there aren't any other questions, sorry, Mr. Foster.
Yes, the county survey being done by Colmax Consulting, that's being reviewed by fire chiefs right now and steering committee, and it's going to the county council, and then will come to municipalities, isn't it?
Correct, yes. Yeah, we actually have a meeting with, a virtual meeting with Comax next week to discuss some of their findings. And as individual fire chiefs, we've all sent in our comments on the report. And then as a chiefs association, we'll be addressing Comax next week to discuss some of the data they have brought forward.
Thank you. So we'll see it eventually.
Correct, yeah. It will be presented to each council.
Thank you. If there aren't any other questions, I'll just make a comment myself. Adding to the positive comments that have been made by our fire chief regarding our not just the recruiting, but the training and dedication from our firefighters. Often people say, well, the volunteer firefighters. Well, they're more than volunteers. When you look at the hours they put in for the training, and then in particular with the new vehicle being able to reduce a response time response time for medical assist calls and emergency calls by some 5 minutes, which is just tremendous for every resident in the municipality in our municipality. And that's particularly important when you look at the stats that are on the first page in terms of the number of and types, not just the number, but the types of calls. Medical assist, 24. That's 2 a month. And you put that into context, it's extremely important and valuable and appreciated, the men and the women are in our fire department. And on that note, I would let members know and the public that you may recall back in the summer, a certificate sent to the municipality from our MPP, Steve Clark, that said, with sincere appreciation, Village of Mayor Wolford, on behalf of the province of Ontario and the people of Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes, thank you for serving and caring for our community during the COVID-19 pandemic. Your hard work and dedication is making a difference by keeping people healthy and safe. That's everybody doing their bit, in the past and currently, and hopefully continuing throughout this year, of everybody doing what they can do to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And often it is said that, and our frontline workers. Well, we have frontline workers. It's not just doing, all of the fire calls, but it's the medical assist calls where, they are face-to-face with the potential of having to deal with a circumstance that could involve COVID-19. And I took the opportunity, after reading this out at a council meeting back last fall, of attending one of the fire training meetings and indicating this certificate is as much for our firefighters as everybody else. So again, they are our frontline workers, and we appreciate everything they do. Through you, Chief, thank you very much on behalf of council and the residents of Mayor Wolford. Mr. Foster.
Just a question regarding the grant from Andrews Gas. Is that were they doing that for all the departments, or did our department work on that one?
Your Worship, I specifically hunted that one down.
Oh, very good. Have we sent them an official Village of Miracle thank you? Village of Miracle Wolford?
We have, yes. We have.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for the questions, and Chief, for your response and your report, and indeed your dedication as well with your department. So, members, you've heard the motion to receive the year-end report from the Fire Department for information purposes. All in favor? And that's carried. And next we have a report regarding potential changes to regular meeting, council meeting times. So I'll read the motion, and the purpose of the motion is, as you can see in part, Mr. Halpenny's suggested that we have some consideration of looking at the times that council meetings are held, and staff, rather than council starting off with a blank piece of paper, thought, well, they'll put together a motion for us to consider, tweak if we want, add, subtract, whatever. So I'll put the motion formally on the table for kicking off some discussion. I got a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Mr. Halpenny, and a seconder would be, thank you, Mr. Foster. Whereas Section 3.6A of the Village of Mayor Wolford's procedural bylaw 30-17 indicates that regular meetings of council shall be held on the second and fourth Mondays of each month at 7 p.m., except as altered by way of council resolution. And whereas Section 3.1A of the Village of Mayor Wolford's procedural bylaw 30-17 states that council, by resolution, may cancel or reschedule any meeting at a preceding meeting. And whereas the province of Ontario declared the state of emergency on March 17, 2020, due to the global pandemic known as COVID-19, followed by subsequent emergency orders and Ontario regulations, which set out restrictions and guidelines regarding social distancing in order to protect the safety of all Ontarians. And whereas social distancing restrictions pose health and safety challenges to the Village of Mayor Wolford in permitting the public to physically attend regular council meetings, and whereas all council meetings are open to the public, And whereas all council meetings that are open to the public are recorded, and audio recordings of council's meetings are available on the village's website in order that the council meetings remain transparent and open to the public. And whereas Councillor Halpy at the council meeting of July 27, 2020, requested an alteration to the start time of 7 p.m. for council meetings as outlined in section 3.6A of the village's procedure bylaw 30-17. Be it hereby resolved that council does hereby direct that regular meetings of council beginning January 25th, 21, and continuing until such time as the requirements set out by the province of Ontario be lifted, so that the village may, once again, safely accommodate the public's physical attendance at regular council meetings to be held at, and that's where it's blank, and that's what, after discussion, council may decide on a time. Before I open it up to questions, comments, is there anything, Mr. Robertson, you wanted to add?
No, Your Worship, I think the resolution is self-explanatory.
Okay. Yeah. So, questions or comments in terms of the preamble and reading up to the hereby resolve that? No questions or comments, Mr. Foster?
Is there a time that works best for afternoon meetings? 2 o'clock, perhaps? Or?
Well, but perhaps, given that it was, Mr. Halpy suggested that we might have a change, did you have any particular time in mind other than, sorry, any particular time in mind, period, or question mark? Thank you.
Well, I thought a 4 o'clock meeting, but that's open to discussion. We don't have any people coming in now, so a 4 o'clock meeting or earlier, whatever.
Well, the reason I'd suggested 2 o'clock was that staff could be done in home.
Yeah, well,
Within the workday.
that's why I thought
Yeah.
4 o'clock,
But
2
before
o'clock
that,
would be better maybe.
yeah, we don't usually wrap up in a half an hour, but
Yeah.
if we were to get started at 2, especially with the budget deliberations coming up, we might want to start earlier so we can
Yeah, well,
hammer it out. So, but if 2 o'clock works for me, does that 2 o'clock work for staff?
Your Worship, thanks for asking. I think it would work well for staff as well, I'm sure.
So I see some nodding of heads, so there seems to be consensus that, as outlined here, I'll read it again, and then there's still may be questions. Be it hereby resolved that the council does hereby direct the regular meetings of council beginning on January 25th, 2020, which is our next council meeting, and continuing until such time as the requirements set out by the province of Ontario be lifted, so that the village may, once again, safely accommodate the public's physical attendance at the regular council meetings. And I gathered the nodding of heads would be 2 o'clock, but before I call the vote, Mr. Malloy, you had a question or a comment?
Well, just an observation. Just an observation. It was in the past, and this is prior to amalgamation. I'm not sure what Wolford did, I don't know their timelines. But the Merrickville Council met at 2 different timelines. The 2 meetings a month, one was at 4 o'clock and one was at 7 o'clock. And from what I remember in the discussion, the reason we went to the 7 o'clock one was because there was concerns from some of our residents that those working in Ottawa couldn't make a 4 o'clock meeting. It was out of their abilities to attend. So we set them back to 7 o'clock, so that everybody who wanted to come had the advantage of attending the meetings and participating and or just listening to the meetings. So that's how we got to the 7 o'clocks. Now I know a lot of the councils in the area have these have afternoon meetings, and that's fine. But I think we should remember how we got to our 7 o'clock meetings, and the reason to get to the 7 o'clock meetings, whether those reasons are still applicable nowadays. Do we have people who would like to attend meetings Now, obviously, nobody's attending now because of the circumstances, but once this is raised and gone and we're back to our regular meetings, I remember this room being pretty packed, reasonably packed anyway, for our 7 o'clock meetings. What would be the circumstances if we change those meetings to 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock, whatever it is, on the people who are working in Ottawa and can't make those meetings? And my feeling is, even if there's only 1 or 2, that's substantial, because you're limiting a voter's right to a council meeting based on time. That would be my observation.
Thank you. Mr. Foster.
I'm just going to direct Councillor Malloy's attention to the last line, which states that we're only doing this until such time as the requirements set up of the province of Ontario regarding the pandemic be lifted. So this is just an interim measure to try after the meetings while COVID is still raging and people aren't allowed in here anyway.
Well, then my question would be, why? What does COVID have to do with the time of our meeting? It has nothing to do with the time of our meeting.
There are no members of the public allowed at the meeting.
But it still doesn't explain why you would change your meeting times. But it makes no difference whether people can come or can't come. It's 7 o'clock, it's 7 o'clock. You know, I understand that and I read that, but it doesn't change anything.
I think, Mr. Helpney, gentleman asked Mr. Malloy and Foster to turn your mics off. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr.
the
Helpney.
reason I suggested a time change was mainly for the staff. And, you know, 2 o'clock is a good idea too. But if you can remember when we had people coming here, I mean, yeah, it was full, but how many of them ever had to quit work to come to a council meeting? I mean, everybody that comes is done working anyway. They're not working. They're all retired.
So, gentlemen, if I might, and I think Mr. Foster, very appropriately pointed out, this is for the during the duration of the. I just want to get the reading. Until such time as a requirement set up by the province allow us to be able to have public attending the meeting. And I think as Mr. Helpney is indicating, it would be nice for the staff not to, if I use these words, not to have to attend an evening meeting when the meeting can be accommodated during the daytime. At 2 o'clock, yes, you're right, it's not any different than 7 o'clock, in the sense that as soon as the meeting is over, the audio recording is uploaded by staff to our websites, so whether the meeting's at 2 o'clock or 7 o'clock, that information, the transparency, if you will, is available. And it's in part a nice gesture for our staff. Whether we continue this on afterwards, we can have that discussion when the restrictions lift to see if we want to maintain at 2 o'clock or not. I suggest we don't have that debate tonight, but I would point out that not everybody can attend a council meeting because there are many people in our municipality that work shift work and are unable to attend a 7 p.m. council meeting. So understand your point that it's more convenient in the evening, people work 9 to 5, not everybody does. But I would suggest, members, we deal with rather than debating, it's a reasonable suggestion that came from Mr. Helpney. It's a reasonable motion for council to consider, and to repeat as Mr. Foster indicated, it is only until such time as we are able to afford accommodating the public to attend live, if you will, council meetings. If there aren't any other questions on that, we'll call the vote, and I see Mr. Malloy has his hand up. Go ahead, sir.
But isn't that the reason why we're here, is to debate these things?
Correct, yes, and
Yeah.
we have been doing that.
You just indicated not to debate it, but we should be debating it.
Mr. Malloy, I'll rephrase, I'll say, let's not prolong the debate by repeating points that have already been made. Anyway, having said that, you have a comment to make, sir.
Pardon?
I said, having said that, do you have a comment to make, sir?
Well, yes, the fact is, we are here to debate it. That's our purpose, is to debate points.
I've already made that point that yes, you're correct, so now I'm asking you to carry on. What is it you wanted to debate?
I disagree with,
Okay, yeah, fair enough, yep.
I disagree with this.
Thank you. If there aren't any other questions or comments, I'll call, you've heard the motion, gentlemen, and the suggested time being the 2 p.m. And I'll call the vote. All in favor? It's carried.
Recorded vote? Too late?
No, you can, no, you can ask for a recorded
I'd
vote.
ask for a recorded
Yep,
vote, please.
absolutely. So I will now turn it over to our clerk of record to carry out a recorded vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Deputy Mayor Cameron?
I'm in favor.
In favor. Councillor Foster?
I'm in favor.
Councillor Halpenny?
Favor?
Councillor Malloy?
No.
And Mayor Struthers?
In favor?
Thank you, the motion's carried.
Thank you very much. And now we will, pardon me, move on. We do have an in-camera session, so we will have a motion to go in camera. Please, and I have a mover and seconder for that. Thank you, Mr. Cameron, and a seconder. Thank you, Mr. Foster. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Maricville Wolford does hereby move to an in-camera session at 7:45 p.m. under Section 239-2 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to address matters pertaining to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. All in favor? And that's carried. Sorry, I just note that Mr. Malloy is not in the room. Anyway, nonetheless, the motion is carried to go on camera. Thank you.
I believe he went to the